Hi, everyone. I have some thoughts on communitarianism and individualism and concepts of group identity and also rights and responsibilities and the founding era when Enlightenment rationalism was first really put into practice during the formation of the American Constitution and the creation of that government. What I tell you hopefully is more coherent than what I just explained. I made a couple announcements about communitarianism and individualism, so I think you already get the gist of what these concepts are. Too far in one direction and it's oppressive, or people have no connection to society and it's chaos, right? So it's either, well, right, it's excessively structured, it's excessively rigid and bad, or there's nothing holding us together and bad. Okay. And whether or not humans are social creatures, I think I might have addressed this before, but I'll reiterate now because I think it's important. I think humans are social creatures. And as much as my libertarian sentiments want us to be these, like, the individual should be the primary unit of analysis, and in America, that has been the case more or less, there are still some shortcomings in that perspective because, well, here's the historical claim that I'm going to make. The reason why the early American founding worked so well and why Tocqueville and other observers commented so favorably on the early American experiment is precisely because the American founding era was a very communitarian leaning society. There were strong limitations on individual behavior. There were strong connections to society and to the groups you were a part of, and obligations you had to those groups in your society. There were very strong social mores and standards limiting people's behavior. It was out of that reality, out of that basis, that the founders created a legal framework to specifically protect and focus on individual rights. This all worked together because of the foundation of communal connection, responsibility, and obligation that was already inherent in society, so that it was necessary to focus and push towards a protection for individual rights. We are living in a society further and further away from those communitarian communal leanings, and we are further and further in the direction of a rights-based society, leaning into rights-only society with fewer and fewer obligations, fewer connections, fewer limitations on individual behavior as they relate to social mores and expectations. So I think that's an important point to make, right? The founding era was an interesting combination of a very communal society striving for individual protections, and not just individual protections. That was based in something substantial and integrated that held society together so that people responsibly executed and practiced their rights. When it comes to the socialization of humans, I think it's a foregone conclusion. I mean, humans are really social creatures. Everything we do is about gaining status or destroying other people's status. It's about manipulating social circumstances. The Greeks knew this. I mean, anybody that can survive on their own is either a beast or a god, right? Go live in the forest by yourself and see how that goes. I mean, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Is it Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Like, human socialization is like a really, really central to human well-being. What's the point of all that? Well, that means that in relationship to what I just said about communitarianism and individualism, we humans are innately tribalistic social creatures. And in a previous video that I want to redo on this particular point, I want to fix it. I kind of said something to the effect of, so racism or well, yeah, racism, I suppose, is one way to put it, but there are other ways to define it. Xenophobia is sort of this innate human trait. And I still think that is true to an extent. We are afraid of things we don't understand, and we're certainly leery of things that are different. but people of different political and philosophical persuasions approach that differently, right? If you're a very open liberal mindset, then new is interesting. But if you're a conservative mindset, then new things can be a little dodgy. Now, in our modern pluralistic society, it doesn't quite work the same, where people just naturally gravitate towards people that look like them. Many people think that that is true, but I think somewhat falsely, or it's a rather shallow analysis, because in a pluralistic society, there might be many different people that have different complexions and facial structures from myself. And yet, the important thing is that we actually agree on the same central concepts. Our moral groundings are tied in some way. Our hobbies and our the things we enjoy are very similar. And so I will give you this anecdote, but an example nonetheless. There are a handful of YouTube channels that I play around on. And I've noticed a handful of guys, they tend to be black guys, but they are very much in lockstep with many of the things I believe and am interested in. And there's a handful of little things in the background that you will notice on their videos, right? Because these are YouTube content creators, and I'm just Joe Schmo giving you some videos based on a class you're taking. So when people curate, as they're professional YouTubers, they will curate a background behind them that is very much designed as a marketing element. It's advertising, but it's also creating a sense of understanding for who that person is and what that person is about, what their channel is about, who they're speaking to my point. When I go on to various channels of people of different ethnic persuasions, I will often see very similar signposts in the background. For example, if someone has up an image of Thomas Sowell, famous economist Thomas Sowell, that already rings a bell in my brain saying, we might agree on some stuff. And if they've got some comic book stuff behind them, and I've seen a lot of guys do this as well, we might have some interests in common. And if, well, you can understand where that goes, right? My point is that somebody appearing different from you for the length of human history might have been an easy marker to indicate a different set of values and behaviors. Not even necessarily bad ones, just ones that aren't yours. And that might be enough just to say, not mine. That way I can't predict what you're going to do, and I don't know how you're going to feel about all these various issues, because people that look like me tend to think like me and have the same values as me, and so we have this cultural understanding. And throughout human history, sure, that was likely the case, but in our society, it is no longer the case, because, right, if I see certain elements of a person and how they represent themselves through their dress, through the things they have in their background, they're sending signals that we might be much more in lockstep up here and in here than someone else who just happens to share this, which is really, well, legitimately shallow and skin deep. So food for thought.